Okay. Well, they can bring it in. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and supporting this event. I know it's a rough weekend with it being graduation and Memorial Day, but we do appreciate everybody here because this is important for our ISO score. Anything we can do to improve community risk reduction helps every represented department with our ISO score, which decreases homeowner and business insurance, as well as increases fire funding for all the departments that are represented, and helps with grant funding too. Our county is a big county. There's almost 2,300 square miles in Roosevelt County. Just over 2,000 of that is protected by our area's departments. Will you go to the presentation? I'd like to thank Danny a whole bunch for helping us out with the IT stuff. Okay, will you go ahead and hit start present from there? There you go. Okay, this is going to be an interactive presentation. So if you want to pull out your phone and scan the QR code, that's how we're going to do some door prizes and stuff later. And there'll be some questions here at the beginning for you. So that panhandle up in the Northwest is covered by Melrose Volunteer Fire Department. Then you have Floyd, that's 466 there in the kind of dark pink. Portales, that's in the kind of pale green at 461. Arch is 462 in the regular green. We have Elida in the orange, Dora in the pink, Kazi in the light blue, and Mill and Sand in the red. So Battalion Chief Sherry, you're up here with us, sir. So I'm TJ Cathy, I'm the fire chief at Portales Fire Department. And I'm gonna let the next person tell me who they are. Russell, do you mind?
Russell Bilberry, Mill and Sand Fire Department.
Jay Lang, Arch Fire.
Michael Matt, Causey Fire.
Paul Escondora Fire. Hugh Frank, Portales Fire, Arch Fire.
Here's your Portales Fire. And none of these guys are happy that they have to be up here with me, but I appreciate it. So on average, anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 fire and EMS calls come out a year that these departments handle. And that doesn't include the panhandle up there that Melrose covers. So Danny, will you go to the next slide? So this one asks the question, are you a first responder, community member, city or county employee, or an elected official? Okay, keep in mind, this is how we're going to draw for prizes. So all you guys in the back that are just, oh, we do have an elected official. Thank you, Mr. Savage. Appreciate you being here, sir. You can sit in one of the comfortable chairs if you like. Did you log in as a first responder dispatcher?
No.
Huh?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe I'm not community member today.
Maybe so.
Maybe I'll go.
You can't be both. You only get to pick one. Right. We'll give it just a few more minutes and then we'll round out the numbers. Right. Let's move on to the next slide, Danny. So which response zone do you live in? Portales, Dora, Elida, Kazi, Floyd, Arch, Mill and Sand, or Melrose? If you'll click on that picture, or never mind, it's going to populate. Where you live. Perfect. Give it just a few more minutes. All right, Danny, next slide. Okay, have you ever called 911? Yes, no, or not sure. If you're not sure, come see me after. I'd like to have a conversation with you. A little over 80% yes. Less no. Next slide, Danny. Okay, if you have called 911, what service were you needing? My apologies. Yeah. If you've had to do it for multiple, just pick the one you've done the most. Pretty even donut. All right, Danny, let's move on. Okay, so this one's gonna show up in a word cloud. Name some of the first responders that you know. And if there's multiple, it'll get bigger. And yes, for those in the cheap seats, it will filter profanity. Yeah. Trevor, Montiel, Jay Lane, Paul, PC Shearer. Dad's friends. I like it. James Bray, Colton Tollett, Chief Williams, Luli. A lot of them. I like that one. Tyler, Granddad. Hunter. Ethan. It's moving quickly. Andrew. Did you put your own, Andrew? Felt left out. Good. You know, we're really blessed in this community with the number of great first responders that we have throughout the entire county. Oh, doing such a good job. I can't keep up. Tyler DeWitt. Destiny Hall. Keith. It's a lot. That's really cool. Thank you guys for doing that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, Danny. Okay, we're going to move into our scenarios. This is meant to illustrate what it takes from the time someone calls 911 to the time that call for service is over. I've developed scenarios for all of the departments in our community. So each chief is going to handle their one for theirs. And if they call for mutual aid, then those mutual aid departments will tell what they would do. So if y'all are ready to get started, you ready, sir?
I guess so.
All right, we're gonna start with Dora Fire Department. Got Chief Paul Luscombe and then several of the volunteers here. So what's your department's average response time from tone to on scene?
Variation in minutes, usually anywhere between 12 to 20 minutes.
How many personnel are on your roster?
We have 32 people on our active roster.
All right, how many personnel respond on a regular basis for a fire call and for an EMS call?
That's a problem. We usually have between 12 and 16, so we'll shoot for 14 as an average.
For both?
Yes, sir. Shoot for 14 as an average.
Okay. Good deal. All right, we're gonna try this first one by radio and see how much it slows us down. So when you're ready, dispatcher, let's go to the next slide. Next one.
Oh, I got the call and everything?
Yep.
We're not starting from the beginning?
No,
Oh, okay. This is the most confusing scenario I've ever read,
I know.
for the record.
Any complaints can be filed with my assistant.
My assistant will talk to you.
There you go.
Portales, the Door Fire Department, engines requested, could be a grass fire, South Roosevelt Road Q, on South Roosevelt Road Q, just north of South Roosevelt Road 20. There are 2 residence structures potentially in path of the fire. Dispatch is clear. 1846.
Door clear at home, Patalas. 1300 around.
Okay, Danny, we go to the next slide. Okay, so you can see Dora there in the kind of bottom of that picture, and that red star with the yellow outline in the top right-hand side is where that address is located. So Paul, en route, what is your plan?
Will, do you want to give the specifics
Which specifics would you like?
of the scenario? So that
Okay.
everybody understands what we're
So
looking at?
your wind is out of the south southwest at 30 to 40 miles an hour with gusts into the 50s. It's 95 degrees with low humidity. And as dispatch mentioned, there are potentially 2 homes at risk.
Well, you forgot the 3-foot tall grass.
Oh, yeah, 3
I
foot
mean,
tall
if
grass.
you're gonna throw me to the wolves, you might as well just toss me out there the whole way.
Yep, yep.
Door 1300 Patalas.
1300, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I need you to Tom Wilson, Elida, Portales. And dispatch county EM as well, Causey as well, please. So we'll put up.
10-4.
Did you get all that?
You didn't tell me.
So- So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna request a countywide dump, everything south of Portales, we will request mutual aid from. So at that point in time, what I'm gonna ask for is whatever each department in this scenario, with this wind, with this high wind, with this high heat, and with this humidity. We're gonna ask for what they're comfortable sending. Because. This is pretty much a worst case scenario as far as a grass fire situation for us when we're dealing with single digit RH. And we're doing that kind of stuff. So. Dora Fire Department, we're gonna assume that I've got 14 people in route. I'm gonna roll engines 1303, 1304. Tankers 1305, 1306, and 1307, and engines 1309. So I will roll out 6 engines with 2 personnel on each engine. That time I'm gonna request a tanker and 1 pump and roll from Portales. As well as whatever Mill and Sand, Elida, and Causey, and Arch are comfortable sending to me in that situation. Do you want them to tell you
Yeah,
what they're wanting?
so Hugh, based on normal staffing, is that something that we can accommodate through our department?
If we're fully staffed for the day, I can send 710 and 719. And put out for overtime.
All right, who is your next? Mill and Sand?
Mill and Sand.
If we have the personnel, we'll try to send them 2 grass trucks and a tanker, and just depends on the day whether we have that many personnel or not.
Who else?
We'll go Causey.
Same thing, we'll try to send at least 2 attack trucks. If we got enough personnel being that close, we'll try to send a 3rd.
Then Elida.
Elida? No, not for this part.
Depending on how many people show up, like everybody else being a volunteer department, we can at least send, 2 tankers and a mini pumper. That way, just in case something happens on the other end, on the west end of the county, then we're kind of covered over there.
Well, and as Paul mentioned and Beth just mentioned, that's a very important struggle for all of us is we would love to be able to send everything, but we still have to protect our own area and be prepared for something else happening, especially on a day like this scenario. All right, do we miss anybody?
Arch.
Arch?
Arch, I'm probably gonna send everything I can, because by the time we get there, it may be in our district. So I'll send probably 3 pump and rolls and at least 1 tanker, probably 2 if I have personnel.
Okay, I'm gonna request County Road, so I'm gonna request road graders immediately because I know that with this wind, I'm gonna have to get a fire break up. So I'll request County Road and I'll request a supervisor for County Road. Also, I will activate emergency management, Roosevelt County Emergency Management, so that he can deal with my aspects as far as state forestry.
Perfect.
We report all of our stuff to state forestry.
Okay, Danny, will you go to the next slide? So one of your personnel that's responding from Portales reports a large plume of smoke from 206 into Mexico 235. Whether that's you seeing it or one of your personnel.
So we're gonna prioritize, of course, first off, we're gonna prioritize the structure on Q. That's the first structure that's in the direct line of fire with that. According to that burn,
Yeah.
we need to go ahead and go to that.
We'll wait just a minute.
So first unit, first engine will prioritize the road Q structure. If we get lucky and if we have enough time, that is very doubtful within this situation or scenario, we would backfire that structure, the grass around that structure and everything else in an attempt to steer this fire more towards away from the structure. And we attempt to use the fire to help us with the fire.
So I realize that realistically, they're not there yet, but for scenario purposes, let's go to the next slide. And your department is on scene and your mutual aid is en route. Next slide.
Okay. So as you can see, the red indicates the fire, the white is indicating the smoke plume. So our first units are going to be on scene with that structure there. Two different scenarios it plays out. If we can backfire, we'll backfire. And we'll steer that out to the right of that structure more. If we don't, then that structure crew will go into straight defensive mode and they'll start to protect that structure and try to keep the outlying vegetation and barns and everything from catching on fire. The next units on scene will start to do a direct attack on this. So we'll do a direct attack from the rear. Up the left flank first, since that's our fire flank that's closest to the structures. And like I said, all of this is an attempt, we're looking to try to do everything we can to salvage or save as much of this structure as possible.
Okay. All right, if you go to the next slide. Okay, all of your mutual aid except for road graders arrive on scene. They're 10 minutes out.
So as
So you protected that structure
and now I've got another one.
and now you've got another one.
So at this point in time, we're going to work. We're going to have two crews, two engines are going to station at that house that's in the direct path. Once again, we're going to do the same thing. If we have the time, we're going to backfire that pad around that house to protect the house. We're going to do everything we can to steer it around any kind of structures of value. This can be attacked two different ways, and there's different things about doing this, but more than likely on a fire like this, we're going to attack it from the back and go up through the fire itself on the flanks to put that out. A direct attack on the head of this fire with the wind and the fuel that's in front of it is not a really salvageable idea for any of us at this point. Our primary concern at this point is structures. We'll let grass burn. We'll continue to protect the structures first, and then the grass will be a secondary concern for us at this point in time. We do have, you can see, we do have a state highway there, 235. So that is going to be our fire. That's going to be our man-made fire break, and we're going to utilize that as best we can to try to fire out against that road also, so that we can try to get. We'll move off that road towards that house a little ways. And we'll burn that out to the edge of the road with engines there to put that out, and we'll try to utilize that roadway as a man-made barrier to try to stop this fire there. Because if that map were to scoot out a little bit more, you would understand that if we don't stop it there, there's not going to be very many other places that we can stop it for quite a ways.
How are you gonna handle your mutual aid?
So mutual aid is going to come with, well, depending on how my mutual aid comes in. So I'm going
Let's
to,
say it's a perfect world and they all arrive at the same time in a timely manner.
so I'm going to task, if, depending on the amount of trucks I get, let's say I've got Causey and Mill and Sand, they're going to come in together, first. So I'm going to attach Mill and Sand and Causey in a 3-truck tandem set. They're going to run the left side flank. Elida is going to come in next, more than likely, and Elida, I'm going to task them with being a strike team. They're going to handle everything on the, what would be the west side or the east side of that, which would be the right-hand side of that. They're going to be given a sector command, and they'll handle everything on the west side command. And then Mill and Sand and Causey will handle everything on the east side command. And then we'll work with those structure crews up at the front. As soon as Arch gets in, we'll set Arch's tankers. We'll set tanker staging. More than likely back up there, you can see there's another about a mile away, you can see there's another area there that's a cemetery. We'll set our tanker staging up at that point right there and have all of our tankers set there so that we can bring brush trucks in.
Okay, like I said, road graders were just a few minutes out. They've arrived on scene.
Okay, once road graders arrive on scene, if we've got the head slowed down enough, then we'll move them to stop that. If we don't, then they'll start in a rear flanking position and we'll attach one mini pumper per grader to that for protection. And then we'll start that, we'll anchor where that black is right there. We'll anchor against that road to make sure that nothing can come up behind us. We'll set an anchor there and we'll run one blade up each side and then a secondary blade. First blade rolls in, the second blade rolls out.
And when you say protection of a mini pumper, what do you mean by that?
The graders have no ability to protect themselves from the fire, so there has to be an engine or a mini pumper assigned to that grader when it gets on scene in order for fire protection for that grader. The county grader personnel all go through 130, 190 training, and they're all in PPE. When they're in the graders, they have their masks, they have their PPE, so they're protected with their personal protection equipment, but they still need that access to that fire truck to keep them safe.
Well, in the perfect world of scenarios, y'all get it stopped right there.
And that never exists.
It
So
never exists in real life, but good job. All right, we're gonna move on to Elida. So if Beth, if you could come up to the podium.
should we just get in here and put some on?
Who has the Elida mutual aid?
You can't even on the front.
Okay, so for Elida Volunteer Fire Department, what's your average response time?
Depending on where it's at in the county, at least 5 to 10 minutes,
And do you know how many personnel are on your roster?
35.
And then how many people respond on a regular basis?
At least 4, sometimes 7, sometimes a little more.
Okay.
Depending on what call comes across. the
Good
radio.
deal. We're no longer gonna do radio, and I will read the dispatch information. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, Danny. So it's around 6:30 and you're on a football standby. And a player from the opposing team is injured on a punt return. Your patient is a 17-year-old male that was hit extremely hard while attempting to return a punt. Next slide. So there's the football field. Not very far from y'all station, right?
No.
But y'all are already on
Already
scene.
there, yeah.
Response time on this is great.
Yeah, 30 seconds. No, maybe less than that.
Yeah,
That's a long
maybe
ways
less than
across the
that.
field.
Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Danny. Upon assessment, you find injuries to the left tibia and fibula and femur. No bleeding is noted. The patient's airway is clear. He is alert and oriented to person and time, but keeps asking his coach, "Where am I? What happened?"
Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is, we're probably gonna take the gurney out there. And probably some pillows or blankets because we need to stabilize, the visual injuries. Once we get him on the stretcher, we're gonna get him in the back of the ambulance and we're gonna start, assessing. First, we gotta take off all the football equipment, so we're gonna check his eyes first because if he got injured hitting and if it was, well, we all know that football's blunt force. So if he hit his head or something, so we're gonna check his spine, his eyes, all that. Probably gonna cut the expensive jersey. Our football coach did show us there's tricks on the shoulder pads that there's ties on the side and the front where they just kind of come off. So we won't have to lift his arms because we don't know if his arms are excuse me, hurt or not. So once we get all the gear off, we're gonna start getting blood pressure, check his oxygen. Let me think. It's hard because there's usually at least 3 of us back there doing all this, not one person thinking of it all.
So while you're splinting, I can give you a quick set of vitals. His
Okay.
blood pressure is 98/46.
Okay,
Heart rate's 110. SpO2 is 94. BGL's 102. cardiac monitor shows a sinus tach, and he has strong radial pulses.
Okay, well, given that his blood pressure is low, we're probably gonna call for help because I am just basic life support. And if we don't have any advanced EMTs, right now, there's only one on the department. If she's not there, then we're gonna have to call for some help because
Okay, what help would you like to call for?
probably for a paramedic intercept. And if paramedics can't get there quick, we'll try to call for aero care because he needs to get somewhere quick because just because there's no bleeding on the outside doesn't mean we can't see what's on the inside. So being in the leg with the femoral artery is very crucial.
Okay, so your paramedic intercept is en route and your helicopter has approximate 45-minute ETA, estimated time of arrival.
We'll get him stabilized, like, for the rough road going, and we're gonna start heading to, the paramedic intercept. And so hopefully we can get there in a reasonable
Okay.
amount of time.
Second Lieutenant Watson, you're the paramedic intercept. You take over patient care.
So right on scene, usually I'll hop in the back of their ambulance with my stuff that I need. Quickly I'd ask them for their vitals, which I've already wrote down.
Yeah.
I'd quickly assess the patient for shock. I'm gonna start 2 large bore IVs due to the fact that this is a traumatic. And give him a fluid bolus to help his blood pressure. I'm gonna quickly assess his pedal pulses. Does he have any?
Yes, positive pedal pulses.
Okay. And then probably put spine precautions in due to the head injury.
Okay.
And then I'm going to request aero care to meet us on the pad, so that way we can just load and go.
Okay.
Does my second set of vitals change at all?
Blood pressure improves, heart rate stays about the same, oxygen stays the same. Cardiac monitor drops to a sinus rhythm.
How's my pain?
Right now he's rating his pain really bad.
Okay, and then I would probably give him pain medication and titrate to effect.
That improves his pain. You are 5 minutes out from RGH.
Okay, and then I would call aero care on appropriate frequencies. Give them a patient report and tell them we'll be at the facility in about 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Hand out patient care.
Good deal. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, Arch, what's your department's average response time?
Average response time depends on day and time, anywhere from as little as 10 minutes to sometimes 20 plus.
Okay. How many do you have on your roster?
22 on roster.
And how many respond on a regular basis?
Regular basis on fire, I count on 8 to 10, and on EMS, 2. Sometimes less.
Well, I guess it's a good thing I gave you a fire call. All right, let's move on to the next slide, Danny. Okay, so at 12:59, Arch Fire Department is requested to respond to New Mexico 88 and South Roosevelt Road, F as in Frank, for a commercial structure fire. En route dispatch, next slide, advises there's no employees present with no occupants in any of the buildings. What are you gonna do en route?
Soon as we're told, I'm gonna call for mutual aid for Causey and for Telus. Mainly water. We have engine capacity to handle something of that, but we need water, no hydrants within a mile. So I'm gonna need tankers. And gonna need for Telus for knowledge.
Ozzy, what are you sending?
We'll send at least 3 rigs. We got 2 4,000-gallon tankers and a 1,000-gallon that can also take them. And if needed, we can send an additional pumper.
All right, he advises you that on the radio. Do you want his additional pumper?
Absolutely.
Okay. Chalice, what are you gonna send?
I'll send 719 and also 710.
All right, next slide. You arrive on scene. And this is what you see.
Well, knowing that there's no people inside, we're gonna probably go defensive. Being a metal building, we know how they burn, we know they're an oven. Now today, that's a vacant building, so it depends on no one will be around to tell me what's inside. Don't know any hazmat, anything like that, so we're probably gonna go defensive and try to keep it from spreading to other buildings.
How much water do you think you're gonna need on this fire?
I don't know, I got 42,000 gallons at our station, and that may not be enough, depending on what's in.
All of it. Yeah. Good. So you go defensive, you get a knockdown on the fire. And then what do you do?
After knockdown, you can go.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right, let's move on to Kazi. What's your department's average response time?
Like Jay said, depending on day and what's going on, average, I'm thinking it's around 10 to 20 minutes.
Okay. How many personnel do you have on your roster?
We've got 29 on our roster.
And how many respond on a regular basis?
On ambulance, we're probably looking at 4. And on other fire situations, 8 to 10.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next 2 slides. There we go. All right, at 0231, Kazi Fire Department is requested to the 2500 block of South Roosevelt Road, E as in Edward, for a residential structure fire. The map there shows Kazi and where that fire is. As we go to the next slide, en route dispatch advises all occupants are out of the structure. And that's what you see. Next slide, please, ma'am.
Dispatch advises that all occupants are out of the structure. I'm gonna go ahead, I see smoke, so we're gonna go ahead and we know that the fire's done burned through the roof if it's looking like this from a distance. We're gonna go ahead and get mutual aid, probably from Dora, just for the more personnel to work an active structure fire.
Dora, what are you gonna do?
Depending on personnel that show, we will send an engine, at least 1 Class A and at least 2 3,500 gallon tankers.
All right, we'll go on to the next slide, and that's what you see when you get there. We got fire coming out of the center of that home.
Okay, we're going to assess the area of the house, so we've got to place our structure to our pumper truck in a safe location where we can pull lines and start attacking the fire. We're gonna want to make sure that our electricity is disconnected from the home for safety for our personnel. I do know on this structure, there's a propane tank on the north side that we're gonna have to make sure is turned off, also for safety. We'll get our initial pumper situated, pull lines. Try to have it set up where we've got 2 personnel packed up, ready to enter, providing structures safe enough for us to. Stability of the structure safe enough for us to send personnel in.
Okay,
If
it is.
Okay, so then we're gonna send 2 personnel in, we'll have 2 other personnel packed up outside, ready to attack. While this is going, if we've got enough personnel on scene already, we'll have we'll be probably dropping a porter tank. With this pumper, and then we'll have our tankers start shuttling water.
All right, after they make entry, they get a good knockdown on the fire.
Okay, after the fire's knocked down, then it's the salvage and overhaul. We gotta go through and start looking through the walls, roof, attic, all that, trying to determine if there's any fire left in the building we need to extinguish.
Is this something you may consider contacting state fire marshal to come out and investigate?
Depending on the look of the situation, it could be, yes. And also, we probably look, if it's an occupied structure, at alerting Red Cross or something for the occupants of the home.
Good. Good job. Let's move on to the next one. All right, Floyd Fire Department, who has the mutual aid for it? Come on up, Second Lieutenant Gramzo. Okay, this is in no discredit to any department, but there are times when personnel do not allow for response, especially in the volunteer setting. So with Floyd being unable to be here, we're gonna play this just like we would in the real life. So we'll move on to the next slide. So at 10:30, Floyd Fire Department is requested to respond to the Floyd School for a female student having a seizure. Okay, typically what happens is dispatch alerts Floyd. They'll either let them know that they don't have any EMTs or request an intercept or whatever the situation is for that department at that time. So for scenario purposes, they're unable to respond. So Portales Dispatch dispatches Portales Fire Department to respond to this call. So Second Lieutenant Gramzo, take it away.
Well, as far away as they are, they're, I hope they're not still seizing by the time we get there.
Okay, what do you think the just average response time to this location would be?
From our station?
Yep.
15 minutes.
Probably 15 to 25. Yeah, depending. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Your patient is a 13-year-old female that has been seizing for about 5 minutes prior to the teacher calling 911. Patient is unconscious, unresponsive, no noted trauma, and no history of seizures. The patient is breathing.
What was the patient doing? Outside.
Taking a math
Let's
quiz.
just use inside. I guess when we get there, did the school nurse move her or?
There's no school nurse present. The teacher got her out of her desk and onto the floor.
Okay. I guess just like everything else, check your ABCs, see her airways open, and she's breathing.
Airway's clear. She is breathing about 12 times a minute.
Okay. And then get your baseline set of vitals, which is right here.
Blood pressure is 100/48, heart rate 114, SpO2 90%. Pulse is strong and regular at the radial.
I'd probably start getting the patient packaged up, put her on some high flow oxygen, the NRB. Check a BGL, check her pupils.
Okay, BGL's 105, pupils are equal and reactive.
Is she still actively seizing or?
No.
She gained consciousness though?
Yes, but she's still a little post-ictal.
Okay, I would advise the school nurse or the teacher to get a hold of mom. And see if she wants us to take her or not.
Mom's unreachable.
So we're just gonna go ahead and get en route. Control her airway with some oxygen, get a line established just in case we start seizing again.
How many personnel would you respond to this call?
Two.
Okay.
If I'm a medic, I'd say myself on the ground.
All right, en route, you are a medic, by the way. She begins to seize.
Give her 2 milligrams of Valium. And maybe a little fluid bolus.
You stop the seizure, she regains, her respiratory rate is 16. Satin 98 on high flow oxygen that you put her on. Okay, so you're 5 minutes out from RGH.
Radio report and. Give me my patient care.
Good deal. Let's move right along to Mill and Sand. Yep. Next slide, please, ma'am. What is your department's average response time?
We have some folks that live right there close for a fire. 5 minutes, they can be there. It's me, it's gonna be 20 to 30 minutes getting to the station.
How many personnel do you have on your roster?
We have 10 at this time.
And how many respond on a regular basis?
5 or 6 for a fire. We have 2 EMTs, me being one of them. So
All right. I'm gonna apologize ahead of time for this scenario. Let's move on to the next slide. So at 17:45, Mill and Sand Fire Department is requested for a motor vehicle accident with injuries at New Mexico 206 and New Mexico 258. As we move on to the next slide, en route dispatch advises this is a semi-tractor trailer that pulled out in front of a small 4-door car, and there are 5 patients.
well, with that information, Mill and Sand is overwhelmed. We have 1 ambulance with 2 EMTs at best. So we're gonna be asking for help. That's from mutual aid from Dora, Causey, Portales, possibly call for a helicopter. We'll need at least 5 ambulances to this point to deal with this.
All right. So Dora, what are you sending?
We're going to send 2 ILS units and a rescue.
Causey?
We'll send at least 1 ambulance, possibly two, we got enough personnel. and what would make it?
Let's say it's a perfect world.
We can save two ambulances, then that don't send in a rescue.
Okay, and who else did you ask for? Portalis? And-
Portalis.
And a helicopter.
And the
Okay, helicopter's got a 35-minute ETA. Dallas, what are you gonna send? Who's got this one?
One ambulance and have their meet on scene.
All right, let's go on to the next slide. This is what you see when you arrive on scene.
We're gonna make sure that, we'll have a rescue there. in Melanson, but we're gonna make sure that Portalis or Dora has rescue and personnel. Cause it's gonna take several of us a little while to possibly get to our patients.
All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so patient one's your semi-driver, a 40-year-old male with altered LOC. He's ambulatory, no bleeding, and airway is normal. Patient two is the restrained driver of the car, a 34-year-old female, alert, complaining of leg pain, chest pain, shoulder pain, and is trapped. Patient three is the restrained front passenger of the car. It's a 35-year-old male that's unconscious, unresponsive, is breathing, is also trapped. Patient four is the restrained back passenger of the car. She's a 13-year-old female, alert and oriented, left shoulder pain, and is not trapped. Patient five is a restrained back passenger of the car that's a 2-year-old male in a car seat. Screaming, crying, does not appear to be injured, but is trapped.
Okay, upon arriving on scene, if we've got the first one we come to is the semi driver. He's hurt, but is not, doesn't seem to be that critical at this moment. We would probably start. Try to get our vitals and stuff on that one.
Okay, your mutual aid from Dora arrives.
Okay, we'll let them handle that one being he's ambulatory. Check them out, move to the second patient. Restrained driver of the car is alert, pain of leg, pain, chest pain, and is trapped. We're gonna hope that we have personnel there to start extrication.
Okay, extrication is started.
Okay, do we have vitals on our driver yet?
Yes, sir. Blood pressure 150/92. Heart rate's 103, sat 93%. BGL is 40. Respiratory rate is 20. Denies any pain or injury.
That's patient one, okay, that's not a real good BGL, that could be the problem of all of our. With everything started, but that is not a life threat at this time. Just a little bit of sugar would probably help this patient, and we'll move on to our driver of the car.
Okay, at this time, the rest of your mutual aid arrives. Helicopter's 15 minutes out.
We would need somebody to check the vitals and everything on our driver.
Okay, extrication's complete on your driver, and her blood pressure is 122/73. Heart rate's 123. Respiratory rate is 24. She's satting 94%. BGL is 90. She has left clavicle deformity and bleeding from both lower extremities.
Okay, I'm hoping our EMTs on scene has got tourniquets, and we know that we have broken bones. This patient's gonna have to go to Lubbock. We need to see what our next patient is.
Okay, which department are you gonna assign to that patient?
Whoever arrives second.
So because,
Causey.
okay,
We'll move on to our third patient.
okay, so the 34-year-old male has a blood pressure of 94/38. Heart rate's 141, sat in 90%. BGL's 100, breathing 8 times a minute, has head, chest, and lower extremity trauma and bleeding.
Okay. We're gonna have to put an EMT in the car with them, start giving them some oxygen, possibly bagging them to keep them alive. Said, if we have extremity bleeding, we're gonna try to put a tourniquet on and keep somebody with them while we're getting them out of the car.
Okay. Extrication is still ongoing with that patient,
Okay,
but which crew are you gonna assign?
if Dora has a second ambulance there by then,
Okay,
put an EMT with that patient in the car if feasible,
okay.
and move on to our next patient.
Okay, the 13-year-old female has a blood pressure of 104/64, heart rate's 110, SpO2 is 98, BGL 103, respiratory rate 18, no noted trauma, and she is not trapped.
Okay, if she's out looking at this next patient that is trapped, this 2-year-old is probably gonna be a little hard to deal with. Hopefully, we can leave that patient, the 13-year-old with the 2-year-old, kind of keep them calm while we try to extricate the 2-year-old.
All right, at this time, Portales paramedic intercept arrives and the extrication is complete on your 35-year-old male patient 3.
Okay, have we got a helicopter yet?
Helicopter got lost and made a wrong turn there, so 10 minutes out.
Okay,
Wait, where's this helicopter coming from?
Carlsbad.
It's one thing to throw him under the bus, but another to keep backing it up.
I know.
yeah. This patient is gonna have to go someplace, and we can overwhelm Portales real easy with several of these patients. And this one is gonna wind up in Lubbock. Millicent used to do a lot of transports to Lubbock, but with just 2 EMTs and 1 ambulance. If our ambulance was to go to Lubbock, we would be without any help at all. So we would, if we don't have a helicopter, maybe we could call another helicopter from someplace else if we're still in the process of extricating.
Okay. Your other helicopter is 25 minutes away. The original helicopter arrives on scene.
That's, if we've got this patient out, they need to go to Lubbock.
Okay.
Where are we on our extrication of our other patients?
So once you get patient 3 extricated, it moves the seat enough to get the car seat out and your patient 5 is extricated.
The patient 5, being a youngster, is gonna have everybody's anxiety way up. Like I said, I would be awful tempted to try to leave the 13-year-old with the 2-year-old. And our next available ambulance.
Okay.
On its way to Portales.
Okay, so which patient are you flying out first?
The unconscious passenger of the car.
Okay.
Sounds like it's in the worst condition.
Okay.
So they're gonna be our first one.
All right, they're in the air.
We're gonna try to get a second helicopter for the driver headed to Lubbock.
Okay. Which patient did you assign Portales to?
Portales was 3rd on scene.
Yep.
Were they the ones that was the driver or the passenger of the car? I can't remember what.
He's the passenger on the passenger side, front of the car.
Okay. That's gonna need the most help. Hopefully, we had a paramedic coming with
Okay.
Portales.
So they were helping with that patient. All right, so Dora, you have patient 1. What are y'all gonna do?
Patient 1 can pretty much be handled on scene. Readjusting the BGL.
Okay, so you're gonna give some glucose. Blood sugar comes up to 75. He is no longer altered with his level of consciousness.
He is he's fully functional and capable, that he can make a medical decision at that time as to whether he wants to be treated or refuse service.
Okay.
If he chooses service, then you transport to Portales. If he chooses not to, I'll have him sign a form and go on his way.
Okay.
With the police car.
Yep. Kazi, what are you gonna do with your patient two?
So we have patient two, we're gonna be continuing care in the back of our ambulance, trying to control bleeding and that. Just patient care. This patient looks to me in this situation to be probably the second worst patient. So we're going to hopefully be getting her on the second helicopter that's coming in.
It arrives on scene.
Well, the helicopter crew usually will get on our unit for a minute, do a patient assessment, and then we'll help transfer a patient to the helicopter to be on their way to Lubbock.
All right. Portales, you got anything to add?
No, still stabilize on scene and get them shipped off.
All right. Good deal. That was an extensive one. As you can see, it's easy for all of us to get overwhelmed. But through teamwork, we can accomplish a ton. Let's move on to the next one. Got you sure? Are you ready? You want to start having your Hanyaks bring in their stuff? You ready?
Ready?
So I'll answer these first couple of questions.
You and Gramzo and wherever Montiel's at, he can come up here too. Y'all are all three our newest ones.
There we go. So our department's average response time is varied. More often than not, our frequency of calls is pretty high. On a first call for service, our response time's anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. If we get a secondary call, it's 3 to 4 minutes. But then after that, if we get a third call, our response capabilities overran, and it could be 25 to 30 minutes before that response is able to be done. Right now, we have 27 personnel in our department, including our EMS billing specialist, her assistant. This is also an EMT intermediate, and then 3 shifts of 8 personnel. I don't know why y'all think y'all gonna be up here. Your patient's coming through the door. All right, Danny, next slide. Danny, can you minimize the presentation for just a minute? There we go. Oh, turn the video back on. All right, Portales Fire Department, a 1055 is requested to the 300 block of South Main at a local bar for a 44-year-old male who had a lot to drink. Yep.
You see today?
Yes,
You on scene?
they're en route. Okay, they arrive on scene same time as you.
First location.
Okay, you have a 44-year-old male who's sitting on a bar stool and just not acting right.
Be able to talk to him there, what's going on?
Jared, you want to take over?
He barely talks to you.
Really talk?
Yeah, you can barely understand it.
Okay, you get a set of vitals. What, is there any bystanders, is anybody surviving, know what's going on? Anything like that? Nothing, we're just sitting up. Oh, can you answer my question? Does he know where he's, at right now?
He's at the bar.
Okay, does he know what town it is?
No.
No?
You ready for his vitals?
Yes.
Okay. Blood pressure of 80/40, heart rate of 135, SpO2 of 90%.
You get on some oxygen. So you're doing, so if you have, you have to do.
100.
Go ahead and transport it.
Okay.
Whenever you get them back in, we'll, that's cardiac monitor.
Okay.
Start ID.
Can you put the presentation back up, Danny? Or can you make it small? Is that possible? Okay, so just pull up the presentation.
We're waiting for a cardiac monitor and go ahead and call the ALS center, so.
You are
Really?
it. You
You
are
are.
it.
All right, next slide, Danny. Next slide. Okay, when you're ready.
This is your initial reading.
What's the rate?
135. Mhm. Yeah, about that time, he kind of groans, and then next slide.
All right, so we'll go ahead and test the pads. This time. Go ahead and talking to him. Cardiac monitor.
Okay.
Check for a pulse. No, that's
You definitely.
beef that it doesn't have a pulse. We should go ahead and shock it. Starting cardiac monitor.
And you did get the IV, you did shock him. If you were to give him a medication, what would you give?
For this,
Okay, we're not gonna go that route. We'll say that your shock changed him into the next slide, please.
this. So we'll we'll go ahead and give him 2 grams of mag.
Okay.
My patient's airway, that's just a very.
He's still breathing just fine. Mhm. With this, yes, he does. Okay. So that goes in and he goes into the next slide.
What's the rate?
We'll go with 40.
The hard one, so we'll go ahead and attach the cardiac monitor and the other time. We'll go ahead and start facing this one.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll set our cardiac monitor to facing and go up 70. And then we'll go ahead and make sure we have complex, make sure we have mechanical capture.
You do get all your captures and he wakes up and he starts talking to you. And he says that this really hurts, but I really do feel a lot better. And about every 6 seconds, he kind of twitches, short of that, he's doing a lot better, yeah.
So we'll have my buddy Mo here, go ahead and sit on. Now, we'll give you some pain minutes. Good, good for the pain a little bit.
All right, we'll get him to the hospital, he's good to go.
All right. Okay. What rhythm is that? Thank you. Good job, guys. Good job, everybody. Okay, let's go to the next slide. It's a question for the audience. Yeah, you can take your Mannequin American. Okay, do y'all have any questions for us? You can either type it in on your phone or just stand up and ask. Nobody's typing, nobody's raising their hands. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. All right, this is where it gets a little fun. So here in a second, Danny's going to hit that play button in the middle, and I've got about 10 issues or struggles that we face in fire EMS. And so we'll see what our first topic is. When you're ready, Danny. Equipment. All right, who wants to take this one? Huh? Just what issues do you see with our equipment?
The issues with our equipment is the age and the cost of the equipment in order to keep our response capabilities up. Just on an average call, the monitor that the gentleman was just talking about a minute ago, that's between $35,000 and $45,000. A gurney in the back of an ambulance is $30,000. Fire apparatus, fire trucks, that type of stuff has gone up 162% since 2016. That pretty much prices out most of the departments that you see up here from buying new apparatus. When you're talking about a new ladder is what, 2.5 million now?
At least 1.5.
Most of your pumper trucks are between $500,000 and $750,000. So equipment needs are dire for everybody. It's very difficult and time consuming to try to maintain the grant processes and to try to do the things that it takes to get these done. So thankfully, we do have Johnny with County Fire that helps us with some of our grants and stuff, and I don't give Antoinette enough credit because she does a lot too, but I don't get to work with her as much as I do with Johnny, because she works with the city. But that's pretty much in a nutshell what we're up against.
Anybody else have anything to add on equipment? Danny?
It's equipment expensive, but it takes a very long time to get things ordered because everything has to be like spot on and inspected and approved by AAA and a whole laundry list of things.
I think most everybody, every department in here right now is waiting on the unit that has been ordered, and we're going on the start of our third fiscal year waiting on the same unit. So
Our last one that we received is a 5-year, from the time we said, yeah, we're gonna buy it until we got it, was almost 5 years.
All right, Danny. Hit the code button. All right, training. Who would like to speak on the issues with training?
I'll tell you. From a volunteer standing, the requirements from the state and everything that they want us to have on training. It's just almost impossible for us to meet that time requirement with having jobs, because every one of our guys has got a full-time job and then they volunteered to help out. But trying to meet all the state requirements for the training is very, very difficult.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that the same requirements for a paid department is the same requirements for a volunteer department. And the fact that these guys, all the volunteers across our entire great county, do that out of the goodness of their hearts speaks highly. Thank you, Andres. Anything else on the training? Let's go to the next one, Danny. Recruitment. I'll just touch on it, then I'll turn it over to the other chiefs, but I have a hard time paying people to do this job. I can't imagine how difficult it is for them to get more volunteers.
In Millicent, there's no more people to ask to volunteer. It's just, our numbers are drying up, blown away, just like the. Nobody left.
Our fire department relies, over 70% of our fire department responds from out of district. They respond from Portales 14 miles to our station because we just don't have the financial or economic infrastructures out there anymore to support them.
And probably half of our members are multiple departments.
Yeah. Next. Community support. So beyond a shadow of a doubt, I believe our community supports us. But more often than not, they prefer to talk about other issues. And it makes it difficult for our personnel, all first responders, to see how much the community appreciates them. Not to mention, as we move on to some of the other things as far as funding and safety, rising call volume, it becomes a huge issue when we're advocating for more personnel, new equipment, training, and so on. Anybody else have to say anything on community support? Okay. Rising call volume. Anybody?
That's for you, buddy.
That's for me. So we've seen a tremendous increase, not only in total of calls, but the frequency of calls. At any given time, we may have 3 or 4 calls in a 30-minute time frame. And as I mentioned earlier, after that second call, depending on the type of call, we're out of response capability and our community is forced to wait for overtime personnel to come in, volunteers to come in and help, or the people from the previous calls to be freed up and complete that call for service. And it's become a very taxing issue for our department specifically. Mental health. Anyone that has ever been a part of first response, it doesn't matter if you're dispatch, law enforcement, or fire or EMS, that's a huge struggle in today's world. And one of the things that I feel this community does really well as far as fire and EMS is the immediate or shortly after critical incident stress debriefing. And that's a great place to start. We've extended further in our community to where our municipality pays for all counseling for personnel if they feel that they need it. And our officers continue to do an amazing job working to identify someone that might be struggling and not know how to talk about it. And that's been very important for our department specifically. Anybody else? Okay, next. Staffing kind of follows the recruitment talk that we had earlier. But NFPA recommends we respond 16 people to a residential structure fire. There's not a department in here that can do that for their initial attack. On the peanut plant fire, NFPA recommends us respond, I think, around 40 to 42 people. Our initial attack was what, 6? A huge struggle. All right, who wants to take funding? Alright.
So funding, of course, we never have enough money. Money makes everything work better. But especially I think for Arch and Causey, for single station departments. Our funding is very, very limited and it takes most every penny we get just for fuel, truck repairs. Station upkeep, utilities, all that. We have very little to no money left at the end of every year to even dream about buying PPE, new equipment, whatever we need. So funding's a major issue for all departments.
For all departments and all of the issues we face could be helped by more funding. 50-50 shot. So when I promoted to chief in 2019, I had no clue or no experience to draw from when the COVID pandemic hit. And it was a huge adjustment for our department, for every department. And I would say that first responders got hit harder by the pandemic than any other group. Because we saw a tremendous increase in calls for service that weren't COVID related, but they were effects of the pandemic. People didn't feel comfortable going and helping their family member that fell down. So we would have to go help them up. We got a call? All right. Thank you, guys. Anything else on the pandemic?
Pandemic is what drove all of this stuff crazy. It caused supply chain issues. It caused demand to get very offset, and that's what's driving a lot of the. That's what's driving a lot of the issues today that you're seeing with the supply and demand and the timeframes that it takes to get apparatus, the timeframes that it takes to get PPE and that type of stuff. It's getting better. But it's still a very long process.
Agreed. All right, go ahead and hit it so we can talk about safety. So how important is safety to y'all as chiefs?
Our number one goal.
Because it's not just our safety, even though that is a huge priority, but it's also the safety of the people that we're here to serve.
You want everybody to go home after every call. They have to go home after every call. There's no other option.
Well, and it's a chief, it's not just that initial goal. It's also you want to have a long, healthy life after you're through being a first responder. And that's something that's extremely challenging in my mind, especially with the staffing struggles that we all face. Because what we do is inherently dangerous. It's part of what calls most of us to this job, to volunteer, to serve, but it puts us at risk. All right, next slide, Danny. All right, so now we get to go to the fun part. Okay, we have one elected official here, and I can't tell you how much that means to me and to us as fire chiefs. So Mr. Savage, if you'd like to go pick something off this table over here. We just want to show a little thank you for your support and you being here. All right. So we do the kids first? The kids are like, yeah. Yeah. It's a white ticket. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, ticket number 8390504.
There.
You're not a kid.
They're out on the park.
They're out on the water. All right, hit the spinner, Danny. All right, you get the Sprinkles 2 Fire Dog book. It's over here on this table. All right, next white one.
White one.
Oh, good catch.
And we'll start that.
8390497.
One of my kids.
Oh, all right, hit the spinner. You pick one. Firefighter Legos.
Firefighter leg.
Next, 8390496. All right, Michael, you lost. Oh, 8390501. 501. That's you? That's you? All right, hit the spinner, Danny. Sparky the fire dog. All right, go get it. Draw another one, not your kid this time.
Well, I mean, I'll try my best.
That should be an idea.
Okay. 8390516.
They're all playing with this kid.
All right, hit spinner. Ambulance Lego set. All right, Paul, will you grab one more white one? Thank you, Mike. All right. Young lady in the front row, what is your number? That is the winner.
It's all great.
All right, let's move on to the adult prizes. All right, first ticket number 615304. Oh, hit the spinner and Julie won. Something small, so. Bluetooth speaker. All right. Did you don't have to do it? Red one. 615307. All right. The fire tablet. Well, red one. Six one five three zero eight. All right. Amazon gift card. Six one five three zero six. Gary Watkins. Remember the deal we made? Oh. Fire stick. All right. All right, Paul, last one. All right, 615303. Bonds gets the TV. All right. All right, go to the next slide, Danny. Okay, you can go ahead and stop recording so you can go. If you want to. No? Okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, wait, stay right there for just a second. I want to say a huge thank you to AeroCare and Simmons Martin. All the first responder giveaways that we have were donated by them. They both came through huge. I'd like to also thank Legacy Church. They stepped up huge for our department this EMS week as well. So go to the next slide. Okay, everybody on your phone, all you first responders need to log in because it's going to throw you into this to let you know, let us know who wins. So if you're a first responder, you got Jonathan. I don't know how I picture emoji because it made an angry one for me. I don't know if it was just guessing or what. Yeah. Okay, to say thank you to Danny, I would like for her to go pick something off the table real quick. If you want to win. Just erase it. Yeah. Hey, take that first box that's empty too. Take a grab of that. Just pick your. How that works. I barely know how to use my phone. All right, is everybody logged in yet?
Picture that I went to my email.
Okay, as people are picked, you get to pick 3 things as first responders, but you can't pick 2 fishing poles and a knife. You can't pick 2 of the same thing. Does that make sense? Johnny, you and Antoinette, go ahead and join. Nels on there. All right, is everybody that wants in? Kyle's still typing? You good? All right. Hit that magic button, Danny. Twyla,
But is that for, is it just for?
Yeah. okay, okay. Go ahead and remove her and hit it again. Just kidding. Kelly. Always first to the giveaways. All right, hit it again, Danny. Mike Gonzalez. Okay, 3 things, but not 3 of the same things. Well, you can get 1 fishing pole. You can get 1 fishing pole.
Of course, I should know.
Huh? You can get a fishing pole. You can get a fishing pole.
I was asking the boss.
All right, hit it again. Gary. Remove him, go again. Go ahead, Danny. Kyle. David. Hunter had to go on a call. Janelle. Did you let her push the button?
No. She let me push the button, got on me a long time ago.
Gramzo had to go on a call. Next, you must be present to win. Beth. Brett. I should have taken you out if you won the TV. Michael back. I think it might be going in the order people entered their name. Oh, you only win once. Okay, go again. Andres, he's not here. Hit it again. Johnny Montiel. Thank you, Janelle. And they requested you. All right, you can stop recording, Danny. Thank you. And thank you all for